Well, welcome everyone to our webinar at Veloso. My name is Bobby Lynn and I am a Success Manager at Veloso. With me is David Haman. He is going to be the host of this webinar and I'll leave the introduction over to him. David.
Thank you, Bobby. Welcome everyone to one of the very first webinars we've produced at Veloso, and I'm very happy to announce our special guest, Blake Mcintyre. Say hello to the crowd, Blake.
Hey guys, welcome.
Hi, Blake.
Blake is a founder and creative director at bringingtobeing.tv. And he has more than 10 years broadcast experience working with some of the largest production companies in Australia. That includes Channel 9, Foxtel, 9MSN, and Shine. Blake, do you want to tell us a little bit about Bring Into Being?
Yeah, so the whole point of Bring Into Being was to create a full 360 solution for digital media. The idea was to make it a one-stop shop. And we mostly deal in corporate video, so the bigger corporate companies or even smaller ones come to us, and from start to finish we can give them a full digital media solution. And we found that there was a lot of corporate video going around out there that was just dudes with cameras filming their business, and it wasn't really up to spec. So the idea was to bring a broadcast solution at an affordable price to corporate entities, and definitely now there's definitely a market for it, especially with the increase in internet speed, and the cost of production has come down a whole lot.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's really exciting. Yeah, it's a great opportunity in the market for video. So today we're going to be talking about video production, in particular shooting the film and video editing. So to start with, I thought we'd discuss some key tips that you may have with regard to the sourcing of the location for a shoot, Blake?
Yeah, sure. So one of my main things that's important, my number one thing with sourcing a location is sound. Like, not a lot of people say that, but it's one of those things that you can't go back and fix. So if you're going to go to a location and there's heavy traffic, or you happen to be under a flight path, or there's even like a school nearby or something, if there's any kind of noise, it's going to really mess with your production. People are going to come in, a lot of people will say, oh, but can't you just fix that post? And sound, you can't do anything with sound in post-production. Any sound engineer will tell you, just scrap it and do it again. And it's very important to make sure that that's looked after. My other point was check for your lighting. If you're shooting for a scene and it's going to happen at a specific time of day, make sure you're aware that if it's not a controlled environment like a studio or indoors, that the sun is going to move. If you've got an opening scene on a beach in the morning and you want that sort of sunrise, then you've only got a short period of time to pull that off. So get there early, even if it's dark, and make sure that you've got everyone in place and you've set your exact time when it's going to be done, and make sure there's not like people walking around with dogs and stuff, or control your environment. Get as much control as you can, and if you can't control the situation, then probably look for another space, because it's these other eventualities, these variables that you can't control, are really going to create some issues. The other thing is power. So if you're running on batteries, have lots of them and have backups. Otherwise, find a power source. And also space. So we had a couple of problems when I first started shooting my own stuff. Was you find a really nice space indoors, or somewhere that looks really cool. Or we did some work inside a sound studio many years ago, and we're like, yeah, this is a great location. We're going to shoot this band. It's going to look really fun. And it looks great when the band was in there, but I couldn't fit a full camera crew inside that tiny box of a space, and it really wreaked havoc. So
how did you manage it?
So we ended up bouncing our lighting through windows and stuff, and sitting on top of you're talking about a space that was like 4 by 4 meters, and it looks really good to the human eye. But then when you realize that the camera itself has a lens on it and stuff, and you really are not going to achieve the same the same thing, that what you see is not what you get, and you end up trying to work on top of these people your talent. You end up stepping on top of them and working around them. But yeah, back to that, just picking your location. So, large open spaces indoors. If it's hard to get close to the action, like an event, if you're covering an event, like a corporate event or a wedding, for example, get some big lenses. Don't try to chase your subject. It's going to look really bad, and it's going to really annoy everyone else. So if you've got a 300mm and you can sit at the back of the room and get a close shot from there, then do that. It's much more appealing than getting up real close. And control your lighting as well. So I think lighting and sound are my number one peeves, and it's one of those things that you can't you got to plan for. So
that's great. Awesome. Thanks, Blake. There are many great tips that people can take.
I've got a question.
When choosing location.
I've got a question for Blake. He mentioned lighting and sound, and trying to control the environment. What if the shoot is like over, I guess, several hours, and obviously I assume you want consistency with every shot, but if it's over such quite a long duration, then obviously the light's going to change, and the sound might change because you might be shifting your gear, or there might be more people or more traffic. So and those are really the things that you can't kind of fix. Then can you fix those in post? Sort of like trying to match all the scenes or the sound levels and things like that.
Yeah. Okay. So like I said before, sound is one of those things you can't fix in post. And any engineer will tell you can't do it. You can try and clean up audio, putting a cappella filters or sound extraction effects and stuff, but you're fighting a losing battle there. If you're not recording your audio properly the first time, then you're gonna fall down. And in terms of lighting, plan correctly. If you got a scene that's in the morning and you're dependent on outside natural lighting, then do everything you can with it with the time you have. Otherwise, there's always the alternative of using flecky boards. They're great for bouncing lighting. You should be using them anytime you're outside anyway, just to avoid shadowing. And it's everything comes down to planning with this. The more pre-production you do, the less work you're going to make for yourself in the long run.
So what kind of steps do you take when preparing for a shot, a particular scene, location?
Yeah. So you're referring to a particular scene, which I imagine you're talking about. It depends on what you're shooting. If you're shooting an interview,
location.
Yeah. So, like I said, after you've done all your pre-prep and you've scouted your location, you're like, this is a nice quiet place, or we can deal with whatever's happening here. There's not going to be much in the way of interference. Steps when is shooting the exact scene is, if it's a moving shot, plan where your shot's going to end, plan where it's going to start. Your ending shot is probably the one you want to pick where your lens is going to be. So take into consideration, mark on the ground where your subject is going to be moving to. If that's not the case, then it comes down to just lighting. Once you I'm presuming here that you've already worked around your audio issues, but it comes down to lighting, and lighting is everything when shooting video. So it's one of those things that, a simple 3 light setup, a backlight and a faded one, and a key light is going to sort out a lot of your problems. But yeah, it's, if someone's walking into from one part of your scene to another and they're walking into a shadow, then light up that shadow, like blow it out if you know that it's going to do it. And also run through with your talent with some field tests before you do your final shot. So you should have an idea of exactly what this is going to look like before you shoot it.
So you're using checklists and kind of a map or a storyboard when you're shooting as well?
Yeah, so we storyboard everything first when dealing with drama. Even when dealing with reality TV, it's not really reality. It's one of those things like
Yeah.
Like next top model, for example, it's like, it's all planned. And we'll even go back and make people say stuff again, or say it with more emotion, or can you please look more upset with this? But it's all about if you've got a specific theme you're going for, plan that out in your schedule, and make sure talk to your editor as well, unless you're the editor, because editors make the best producers, and talk to them and see what they want to work with when they're editing. It's really easy to get on the day and then say, oh yeah, we're going to film this scene and it's going to be these two people talking, but what do you want that to look like? If you're playing into an emotional scene and you want some close-ups, if you're playing into a wide shot that where you want to show the full gravity of a situation, then it's a good idea to plan that as well, and know what lenses you're working with as well. So it's nice to have a good range.
So where do you see the videography industry heading?
Online. I've experienced this recently with a whole bunch of people, especially with broadcast. It's become easier for them to move into robotic cameramen, and everything's preset. It's people who are working in news and current affairs, especially, like there's no cameramen anymore. I think Channel 9 still uses some camera guys, but broadcast is kind of slowing down. It's not dead. It's probably never going to die, but it is having trouble competing with online. So online is the next phase, and people are producing this amazing content for really low cost, and especially with clients, like you've got corporate entities now who are pushing big money into video production. And these aren't for TV commercials. These are for Facebook commercials. These are for YouTube ads, and there's probably more money being spent on online video production now than there is on TV.
Right.
So there's more money to go around.
Well, so I assume that's it's just going to increase in that sort of direction. But since we're increasing that direction, do you see anything going towards possibly streaming on, say, virtual reality or something like that? Sort of like the next platform?
Yeah, virtual reality is a funny one. That's definitely the next step, and I don't think anyone's really taken a full advantage of it. I know Facebook now is allowing for 360 cameras, and YouTube is as well. But in terms of like proper virtual reality or interactive content, I don't think anyone's fully exploited it for what it can do. And the other problem you have is compatibility issues with that. So, are you going to just stream content that's specifically tailored for people who only have Oculus Rift, or is just going to be 360, that sort of view? But on top of that, like live streaming 360 content, even producing 360 content is actually really difficult, because one thing that people forget when dealing with a 360 camera is you can see your camera crew.
That's right.
People who are so like you can put a camera there, and then all I have to do is scroll left or right, and they'll see you standing there, just looking like, oh, I'm now in the shot. So a lot of that stuff it's going to be planning your shot, putting up a 360 camera, and then just getting out of the way. I saw a really interesting. There's a really interesting page, and this guy was talking about filming 360, particularly adult content. And they were like, how do you do that?
Right.
And they're using one of those 360 GoPro rigs, but the amount of post-production that goes into stitching out the camera guy who's operating all this stuff is actually a really long and unpleasant post-production process from what I saw. So it's really interesting to see, where is it going in that there's a whole lot of stuff where you're trying to produce content, but you can't have a crew there, and it's all pre-planned, and if not, you got to pre-plan your post-production. What are you going to do in After Effects to remove a person who's in the way? So yeah.
So the technology is not quite there yet.
Well, yeah, there's some solutions out there. Like the cameras are getting better, and they're getting better at masking the fact that they are there. There's I can't remember. I think it's the Nokia brought out an Ono, and that does some sort of graphic filling where it uses the pixels around that area where the stand will be, and it fills in the space underneath it, so it can mask the tripod.
That's great.
Or someone's
So
helmet.
what do you recommend for the people just starting out in the videography industry?
Keep it cheap, because there's a whole bunch of people who will go off and spend $10,000 on camera equipment and then never get to use it. If you're shooting on a camera now, like, so much content online, especially if you're starting out, then you're probably doing stuff for online. You don't really need that big of a camera. It's going to be broadcast in 720p, and you don't, like, 16 stops of dynamic range to shoot a guy talking about his business is probably unnecessary. If you can get it down, like, production lighting is expensive. Like, you can get away with a couple of LED lights and, you know, really test out if it is actually for you, because it's one of the most expensive overheads is in this industry. If you're doing video production, you're spending a lot of money, and if you can't make your business viable with cheaper tech, then you're going to crash and burn, because you're not going to be able to compete with other people who have already have that equipment there, but already have the customer base to pay for all that stuff as well.
For someone starting out, and when you say keep it cheap, let's say, you know, what's some typical cheap equipment that you would recommend for beginners or for people just starting out? Would it be, say, the Canon 5D, or yeah?
So Canon 5D, the Mark III is awesome, but you don't need to buy brand new stuff. Go buy some secondhand gear. Like, it's way cheaper, and there's no real requirement for spending, you know, $7,500 on the latest Sony camera when you don't really have a requirement to be shooting at 400 ISO, or you know, do you need to be shooting at 120 frames a second? It's work within your budget, and also work out what predominantly you're going to be using it for. If you're going to be using it for interviews, go find a secondhand 5D. But also, that being said, there's a lot of cool hacks that you can do with the 5D that actually make it one of the best cameras on the market. It's a black lantern, you know, that allows you to basically upgrade the 5D just through the firmware to be better than most of the other cameras on the market.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so you can actually hack the 5D to shoot in RAW, which is amazing.
What about renting camera?
Yeah, so renting a camera can be expensive. There's a lot of arrangements out there. So if you're in Australia, you're going with there's companies that will allow you to rent gear, your own selection of brand new equipment, and you hold on to that, but you just pay a monthly installment. That can be good if you're shooting a lot of content, and it can easily outprice just hiring content for the day. So if you need a camera and you know you're going to be using it 4 or 5 times a month, it's definitely worthwhile going through and doing a lease agreement on some camera rather than hiring it out for the day. Because if you're going to do it by the day, they're going to charge you $400 to hire a camera. When if you go through a lease agreement on some equipment, it might cost you $400 a month to have access to that gear all the time. So unless you're dealing with, you know, proper large scale production, you know, if you're going to shoot with a Red or Elixir, then renting is probably the way to go. But I think just for starting out content production, then you've got the choice of getting some equipment that's not the latest, greatest spec, but the fact of the matter is it's going to do.
What sort of budget would you recommend
for starting out?
Yeah, second-hand camera, or what do you think is a...
I haven't really researched
Hard
it.
to say, yeah.
It's one of those... Compared to what work within your own budget. Like, no, some people are starting out with $0 and zero stuff. If you've got...
Just use your mobile phone.
Yeah, mate, I'll give you an example. So a friend of mine recently she did a live stream for the Daily Telegraph a couple of weeks ago. And there was a We Will Rock You, it was a stage show. This is the We Will Rock You stage spectacular. And they got offered from the Daily Telegraph to do a live stream of this event. And it went for an hour and a half at the live stream. Might have actually gone for longer, maybe 2 hours. But she got an iPad, set it up at the back of the room, and then just set that to stream out live on Facebook and YouTube.
Nice.
Great.
That stream got hit by 400,000 users in that time.
Wow.
And nobody really even notice that it was just streaming from an iPad camera. It was just insane. So, you know, if you can, that being said, you know, if you turn up to do a professional shoot and you whip out an iPhone, people are going to be a bit peeved.
On that note, Blake, so let's say if someone decided to upgrade their equipment and they spend, you know, thousands on a brand new camera, then for them, is it sort of like a way to charge clients more straight away, or is it more about the work, like the workflow or the work quality that comes out of it? So what I'm trying to ask is, you know, for people in the industry,
does a better camera get you better work? Yeah, it does. Like,
okay.
if you're running with a Red cam, and you sell yourself as a shooter who has access to a Red Epic, or you're shooting in 6K or 8K raw footage, people are going to hire you just because you have a Red Epic and you can shoot in 8K. There's specific, you know, advertising agencies and stuff. So we need that footage done in raw,
wow.
And they'll hire you just because you've got a Red. That being said, they're going to need some examples of your work, and if you're running with a Red, then you've probably got a backlog of, you know, you've just spent $32,000 on a camera, so you're going to have some already work done. But yeah, people will hire just because of that. Drama production is usually shot on Elixir or Red, and then yeah, just having that equipment at your disposal, people will hire you just because you've got it there.
I think we should. That's some fantastic tips there on video editing. Videography. I thought we'd move on to the next topic, which is video editing. And so, in particular, I'd like to sort of talk about what are the steps. What's your workflow for video editing?
Yeah, right. So usually I'll consolidate all your media. Make sure you're working from one location. Don't have bits and pieces scattered across several hard drives, or some on your computer, some on a server. Consolidate everything. Otherwise, you're just going to be running around when content gets unlinked and losing stuff, and it's going to send you crazy. The other thing is, don't be afraid to create a hierarchy in a project. You know, I'll speak from Premiere now because that's what I'm using at the moment. But so many times that people rush into creating a project, they just dump all the media in the project file, and they've just got everything laid out in the root directory. Create folders and sort everything out. Make sure you've got a source directory. Make sure you sort your stills from your video, and make sure, if you can, fill out the XML data in those fields. So if you've got if you're doing takes and you're up to the 7th or 8th take, import all of them, but make sure you name them correctly. So take 1, take 2, scene 1, take 2, scene 2, take whatever. Also, another way to kind of speed up your process is take all your overlay footage, sort out the best parts of your overlay footage, and add it to a separate timeline in your project. It's nice to just have another timeline there. It just has all these excellent parts where you don't have to go back into other pieces of media, scroll through looking for nice shots. Yeah, organization is key for the project.
Yeah.
And
right.
if you're unorganized project will really slow you down.
If someone was going to hire your services as a video editor, at what stage would the video editor get involved in the production?
I would suggest getting the editor involved from the beginning. Editors make the best producers because they're the ones who have to deal with the content, and usually they've had to deal with content from bad producers or content that's come through and they've had to deal with it, and they know how to deal with that, but they give you the best idea of how to shoot stuff or what they want to see that they can work with. They don't have to be involved in the pre-production process, but if you can just ring them up and then just, or you can inquire with an editor, if you are going to do this, how much will it cost for you to cut this for me? Or if you can work out how long your total piece of media is going to be. If it's going to be a 3-minute, sort of color piece about a business or an event, there's no need for you to go out. Like, an editor's going to tell you there's no need to go out and shoot an event with a straight camera on a wide angle for 40 minutes sitting at the back of the room. They're not going to be able to do anything with that. So yeah, if you know the editors are going to use and you have a good relationship with them, get in touch with them and then just give them an idea of what you're going to shoot, and then they can give you an idea of what the turnaround time will be, or some ideas about what you need to do to get your desired result.
And so, what sort of questions should you be asking the video editor prior to the shooting or at this time?
I think an editor will probably ask you most of the questions. That being said, a lot of the time, like if you're the one shooting it, then you're going to be the one editing it when you're starting out, or if you're the one shooting it, then you're going to be outsourcing to an editor or an editor service who probably have a whole bunch of FAQs or things on their site that people want to know. So,
sure.
Like if you're outsourcing to like Veloso, for example, there's a system of editors there. Maybe you'd shoot through a quick message to say, "Hey, I'm shooting a wedding, for example. What are some shots that you think would really make sense for me to capture?" And people who have done a lot of weddings will say, close-ups of the bride, just shoot the bride, get as much as you can of the bride. No one else really matters. Then work around that. So it's the detailed shots as well. So they really know, like if they're going to be editing your final product, then they really know what shots they want that you're going to want to see and what you can get for the best result. So just give them some details about what you want to shoot, and they'll just come back with a quick. They might even give you a shot list of lists of shots that you need to capture to get the best result out of your editing.
What else should be supplied to the video editor besides the raw footage? What other things do you think would be helpful to include?
Hence, if you are shooting in RAW, give the details of the camera you're using. It usually helps when dealing with the color space. And maybe if you leave the XML data along with then they can look at the source files and then work out the color space you're working with as well. Other than that, tell them what sort of emotion or what you're going for with an output. Do you want it to be hardcore? Do you want it to be action-packed? Do you want it to be an emotional cut? A funny thing I used to do was I used to take that show Pingu that used to be on ABC.
Oh yes, yeah.
And so you can take any episode of Pingu, change the track underneath it to System of a Down, and it changes the entire aspect of the whole show. Or put some Slipknot under it. So music is one of those things that you can, it can change the whole aspect. If you want to go find your music yourself and then send that to the editor and say, "Can we cut to this?" Then that's something that can really make life easier. And that can really set the emotional tone of what you're trying to achieve as well. Because a lot of people can listen to, they don't have to be an editor or something to listen to a song and say, "Yeah, that's what I want it to feel like." People seem to be able to sense emotion out of music better than they can out of film, and then an editor can look at that and say, "Yeah, okay, I can cut to that. I can work around that song and do something for you."
So, comparing from the earlier days of when film was first being shot, how much more work do you think is involved in post-production today compared to back then?
Next to none. When I started out at Channel 9, we were editing on tape. So we would we were using Betacam for like tape recorders. So you'd run it through a machine where you'd have two recorders set in, and then you'd have a massive mixing desk with monitors, and you'd be cutting through meticulously timing stuff, and linear editing is not very fun at all. Now working in a digital platform, a digital space, you've got Premiere now. I'm in love with Premiere just because its integration with the whole Adobe Creative Suite. Like the amount of time you save is exponential. Like, I can't even describe how long it would take to do some of the stuff I do now on tape. You're knocking out full feature productions in a day. We were turning around from when I started to when we were at Channel V. We were turning around entire episodes of TV shows in less than 4 or 5 hours.
That's really fast.
Really quick. Yeah. Well, once you've got the first episode always takes the longest. Once you've got your format down and your production sorted out and your graphics, then really it's just mimicking everything you did in the one before and making sure you match the vibes. And it's a pretty quick process once all your graphics are done. That being said, your first episode is going to take longest because you're building a format and you're building your graphics around that. So a lot of people probably won't be cutting in broadcast, but or a series of videos. But yeah, the first one's always going to take longest, and after that, it's a very copy and paste sort of approach. You're going to get a lot of the same stuff a lot of the time, and you've got to, once you've got your format, life becomes a lot easier.
I guess this question's for the end, but I wanted to get in early. So basically, from the client's point of view, I would assume that videographers or people in the video industry, they're sort of at the front line of technology, and they definitely see what's on the horizon, what can be done, what opportunities clients are missing out on. So do you have any sort of advice, or if you could, let's say if you have an audience of potential clients today, who's competing against each other for the best way to do video marketing or the best way to promote their business, what kind of advice can you share with them so that they can keep an eye out for these things in the future?
In terms of if you were going to approach a firm or an agency to do some video for your company, it's a hard one to pick because you never know what's going to be coming up next. And usually by the time it gets to that end of the industry, then someone else has already done it. If you're browsing around on Facebook, just recently Facebook showed this 360-degree video of the opening sequence to Game of Thrones. I'm not sure you guys seen it, but Zuckerberg posted it on there himself. You can browse on Zuckerberg's Facebook page and you'll see it there. And it's actually the opening credits for Game of Thrones. It is a full 360 version of it. It's loud. It looks great. It's that opening sequence with all the buildings and stuff rising, where the shot is actually flying through these scenes. Except you can spin around and look at all the different scenes being built, and that's something that's new tech. That's something that came around and people have looked at and just gone, "Oh my god, that's incredible! It's doing this." And this is the whole thing with this 360 content and the virtual reality world. Everybody's really excited about it, but nobody knows exactly knows what they want to get out of it. A lot of corporates are jumping on it and saying, "Yes, I want this," but what do you want it for? Why do you need it? It might be going out and then just jumping on something because you're excited and it looks cool and somebody else made it really cool. It doesn't mean it's going to work for you.
I see it. I'm going to share this on our stream. So it does look pretty amazing.
It's really good. There's been a lot of people looking at it and going, "Yes, can you do this for my business?" And you're like, "What? Do what?"
Right. Yeah, I guess people don't realize sometimes how much work is involved, and
not just that. Is it relevant? Is it relevant? Is it going to generate leads for your business? Is it actually going to do anything for you? This is a great promotion for Game of Thrones, but if you're an accounting firm, what are you going to do with that technology? If you're trying to sell used cars, actually, there would be a good use of used cars. If you're trying to sell anything, make sure that it fits your business. There's no point in going out and creating all this amazing content that has little or no relevance to what you need or what you're trying to do. That being said, you can, with enough budget, you can pretty much make anything fit. But there are companies out there who have budgets to do crazy stuff, and there are a lot of people there who just want things because they look cool.
The Game of Thrones video is sort of like you're in a massive sphere, like you're inside.
Really so if you watch that and compare it to the actual opening titles of Game of Thrones, it's that opening title, and that looks like it was all done in Cinema 4D and put through After Effects. But if you're running it, the original opening titles is like one of the best parts of that whole production. I love it. But now that they did this in 3D, it just blew people's minds. It was really cool.
Wow.
So yeah.
Well, I've run out of questions, Blake. I don't know. There's plenty more I could ask, but I don't want to take up much more of your time. It's been a pleasure having you on today.
Yeah, no worries.
Did you have any other words you'd like to share? Some extra advice?
Be flexible is actually probably one piece of advice. If you have a client come to you, when starting out especially, if someone comes to you and they don't have the right budget to suit what you want to build for them, work around their budget. It's, if you're starting out and you're charging people $5,000 a day, not everyone can afford that, and you're not going to build a very good repertoire with no customers. So you're going to have to do some work for free. You're probably going to have to wear a loss for a while, but as long as you're creating content constantly, then there's always going to be, you're going to build up a reputation and people are going to come back, return customers. So that's the main thing. And maybe just have some fun with what you're doing. There's no reason to stick to the same old repertoire either.
Now, last time I spoke to you, Blake, you were traveling around the world a little bit and, doing projects halfway around the world. How did you get international clients? If there's someone sort of starting out and, maybe they feel that it's a bit competitive in their local market, do you advise them to look beyond, what's local?
That's an interesting one. So that was in South Africa. That was actually through a local client that I was working through here in Australia, in Sydney. We'd done so much content for them. And then they decided that we'd just go to South Africa and work with them over there as well. So, I mean, there's a lot to be said for customer loyalty in that respect. If you're doing something for someone here and you do it really well and their business grows, then your business is going to grow with theirs.
Right.
It's one of those things. So that was also another thing where I was quite flexible, and also I just wanted the opportunity to travel. So I did that at a very low price. It was
okay.
So if you've got someone who's like, let's say for example you have one client, you've been working with them for 2 or 3 years, they decide to open up a base of operations somewhere else on the planet, and they want to make a production about that, maybe suggest making that production for them, and it would be in their best interest to have that done, and it also adds to your resume as well to say that you traveled over there and got some content, but also gives you the opportunity to go and actually shoot some other random stuff while you're there as well.
Right, right. So it's sort of, you can definitely, videographers or video editors can definitely help the clients by possibly pointing out something that is obvious to them but not very clear for the client. I guess if they're helping out their business, then it's a win-win for both parties.
Yeah, if you can see a gap in something, this particular job was on their suggestion, but we've just been working with them for a long time. If you can see an opportunity where you can definitely help out and springboard someone else's business. Someone actually once told me something. They said the best way to make $1 million is to make someone else $10 million.
That's a good say.
Yeah, so it's one of the corner points. If you can wear a loss in the short term and then do something really good for someone else, then you're definitely going to reap the benefits of that situation. And that being said, I know a lot of guys who travel all over the world just off having long-term relationships with customers in exactly the same way, where they've grown, their production company has grown alongside someone else's production requirements. So if you're doing good stuff, then it's always going to go good places.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Excellent. Well, Blake, can we add your details into the stream, or basically where we're posting this? And so that way people who have additional questions, they can follow up with you. Maybe they'd like to know a bit more about your background or your business, or just some general tips about videography.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks a lot, Blake.
Excellent. No worries, man. I'll catch you guys later.
Right.
Yeah, most definitely.
Thank you very much, Blake, for your time.
Yeah. Thank you to all the audience for checking in today. Bye.
Bye.
See ya. Bye.